G'day guys, thanks for joining us. I am sitting here with Angus Taylor, the Shadow Treasurer, federal member for Hume, who's dropped in to take a look at our LuxPod Omni. Thanks Angus for stopping by.
Really good to be here and wonderful to see what you're doing here. Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. We're trying to do something about housing affordability, and as we know, there's a big issue there. What's your perception and take from your obvious position that you have? Is it something that's talked about around Parliament? Is it as frontal as we hear it is in the media?
It's right at the top of the list, alongside cost of living. Yeah. We see it everywhere we go. Yes. There is no question we're not getting enough houses in place for the population growth we've seen. It's a good debate about whether population growth is too high, but there's also got to be a sensible debate about how we get more housing in place, and that's become a huge challenge. Yes. We're not seeing it coming into place fast enough, and Australians are paying a high price for that.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I have had a little bit of conversation in the past around sensible immigration, and we share the similar viewpoint that we need immigration, but we need smart immigration. Places like Sydney, obviously nearly 1 million people into the base in the last 2 years. We're just not keeping up, are we?
No, we're not. And we just have built about half the houses we need. Yeah. And the result of that is everyone has to pay more. So we've got to find housing solutions, as well as making sure that the growth is the right rate.
Yes.
And anything that finds innovative housing solutions, I think, is something we should be looking very hard at.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a biased perspective that we have, obviously, because we're sitting here in what we regard as, the beautiful LuxPod Omni, and we're biased towards what we're trying to do. But obviously, government has a role to play. What's your view on the combo between the role of government, the role of private enterprise to try and solve the issue?
Well, government has a role to play, but a big part of that role is to let private enterprise to get on with it. I mean, this is the thing, is I think there's lots of innovative people around Australia who are looking for solutions like this one, and I see them as I get around Australia. We need more of it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what government's got to do now is free things up and let things happen. Yes. There's smart entrepreneurs, smart investors, and smart people who all want to make these things happen, and a lot of the block is government.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you make that point. Are you seeing that in your travels, that there are businesses and people who are trying to do this kind of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the number one point they will make time and time again is what's blocking it is government getting in the way. Okay. And so a big part of what we're trying to do is not regulation, it's getting regulation fit for purpose, or deregulating, in fact. And that's got to be a priority for government, because we're just not getting houses in place fast enough. And what housing is going in is proving to be too expensive, too hard to put in place.
Yes.
And we all end up paying the price for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I can ask you a two-part question on that. Are we starting to see, in your opinion, the gradual shift away from the old Aussie dream, the 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-garage, quarter-acre block? Is this kind of solution starting to get into the Australian psyche by force or by choice, do you think?
Well, I think we always had a big range of housing types. Right. We just lost that. We tried to standardise it too much. I grew up in a home which was two cabins from the Snowy Mountains scheme joined together to form a family home. Right. And, I think that was quite common back in those days, but not anymore. And I think we've got to be more innovative about it. We've got to recognise that there's some really innovative solutions around, and we should be looking to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we mentioned at the top you're federal member for Hume. You've lived in this region for a long time. You love this region. What are you seeing specifically about this part of Sydney regarding housing and affordability and cost of living? What are you hearing?
Well, we have land here. And whilst I think we've got to make sure population growth is in line with the infrastructure we have, these sorts of solutions can really play a role. Yeah. And this is why I think this area and other areas around the edge of Sydney can play a role. This is where government does have a role. Government must put the infrastructure in place to align with the population you've got, and there hasn't been enough of that in some areas. Yeah. But as long as that's done, I think we can find these innovative housing solutions, and these are the sorts of areas where it can be done.
Yep, maybe if I can follow up on a comment you made before, I agree with you totally that government has a role to play in, facilitating the solutions. Are you able to go slightly deeper on that and tell us, beyond the concept of deregulation, how do we do that?
Well, I think councils, state governments need to make sure that their planning laws are not prohibiting good solutions.
Yes.
And they have done. There's no question about that. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to get approvals now. It takes a long time. It's expensive. It's onerous. And I think we've got to make that a whole lot easier.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're just not going to get the housing in place. And anyone in the development industry, the building industry, will tell you just how onerous the building restrictions have become. And you know, they're not fit for purpose. I mean, if they were delivering the outcomes we wanted, great. But clearly they're not delivering the outcomes we want because we've got a huge shortage of housing. So that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question. We are heading into a federal election year next year, and obviously your side of the table will be talking about cost of living, housing affordability, all of the obvious stuff. What do we expect to hear you saying on those points over the coming months?
Yeah, well, you'll hear us saying we've got to deal with cost of living as the number one issue facing Australians, and housing affordability and access to housing is right at the heart of that. It's, of course, the most expensive item anyone ever buys. Yes. The car's number two, but the house is number one. There's no doubt about that. So that'll be our focus, and a lot of it is about freeing up supply so people can invest, get things done. Australians, you know, we're an innovative lot, and we'll solve the problem as long as government enables us to solve the problem. Yeah. And that's what we're on about.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time.
Good to be with you.